Right, we're back for Snake and Banter, and we are joined by a return guest who wasn't. Didn't you tell me something, Maui? Like, actually, Vu was the first ever guest on this show or something, wasn't it? Is that actually true? Is that true, Vu? Do you remember that?
I remember I was early on for sure. The first one surprises me.
Yeah, he was the first on your channel before it went to the LFN.
Ah, there you go. Yes,
proper.
True.
Yeah.
Now listen, I'll break the fourth wall for a second. That is also because when you start things up and they haven't got the luster and the appeal, just ask someone likely to say yes. Don't shoot for the stars and be like, "Hey, Simple, you want to be on?" He's going to be like, "Who the fuck are you?" No, you just ask someone who'll go, "Yeah, all right, I'll be on."
I'll have you all know, Vu is one of the top 10 guests on this show regularly.
I will say he's had some good takes.
Preparation of points is pretty big on this show, and also being willing to not just say the most, I'd say, common narrative thing. It's nice to bring something new to the table or interesting, and Vu definitely does that.
Put it this way, Maui, I'm sure you've noticed, in the era when we have all the sponsors and we have to do it more regularly, you have noticed, in the past, I used to tell people, "Oh, don't do that take. We've had that a few times." Now I've just realised you've got to let some people talk about what they're actually thinking about. You can't make them come up with a new take. And I will say, Maui, there are a lot of people where it's like, I get their takes back and it's like, really? Uglies that maybe Mouse needs a roster change? What's this? NiKo's choking at majors. Like, we do these like every other episode, but you have to just pretend like, okay, cool. So what's your badge thing? So anyway, Vu, in light of the hype up, obviously Vu also works at events now as well as having his YouTube channel. Well, I will also say, if anyone's ever never checked out Vu's YouTube channel, first of all, it's good. It's like Launders, but with less like fake mistake and actual real analysis in the place of just going, what? Who is the best? Like, about 90% of Launders' effort seems to go into the title, which he kills it, but then the video might not even be about that. Vu actually will do one. My favourite of all time, if anyone ever wants to look it up, is the one where he wrecks the Scotty Sports guy for saying that simple, like, never aims at the guy with the crosshair. Just look it up. Anyway, Vu, in light of that hype, we're going to start...
Vu's best
we've got to go quick here because we've got to get into it.
Is the Calyx one.
Okay.
Or Zontix. The Zontix and the Calyx ones are also both incredible. Just saying.
We've got to start... We've got to get the hot take ASAP. So, let's start with Vu's bad.
It's time for karrigan to retire. Okay, I think we've been through enough. I think Austin. I remember Austin was on the show 2 years ago.
It's true.
And said karrigan should retire, and he maintains he was right. And I say, Austin, he made 2 major finals since then. He maintains he was right. I kind of, I think now is the time. I think now's the time because what team really wants karrigan that could use him effectively? The thing with karrigan is I think he's been on super teams for so long. I think he's like really talented at working with star players. If you put him on a Falcons, I think he would work really well. If you could somehow magically make Spirit speak English like as their main language, I think that team would instantly win a major with karrigan. But these are teams that don't want I don't think Falcons is jumping for karrigan because his fragging is so astronomically terrible. They're just like, teams are ready to move on to a better fragging IGL that they think they could put out like 90% of the same calls but with better fragging. So it's not that karrigan's like ability is so bad he couldn't call a good team. It's that I think he's overstayed his welcome rather in the top tier to the point that people I don't think want to pick him up for the teams that he needs to be on. And I think if karrigan goes to tier 2, tier 3, he would need to reinvent the way he calls. Like, I think he would need to call a slightly more like, I mean, he's tried to make some adjustments recently, but I don't think it's worked all that well. Like, how many times do you see FaZe like out-call their opponent significantly? It's tough when you have bad fragging, admittedly, but I don't think they out-call their opponents all that much. His fragging is historically terrible. Like, just it was awful last year and the year before, and it continues downhill. It continues downhill permanently. And I love karrigan. And for the fact that I love karrigan and think he's the GOAT IGL, I think it's time to hang it up. I think it's time to get us off of this wild ride and take a retirement off of the Miss Major.
Here, I'll give a counter hot take. I have a counter hot take for this one. So I'm glad you brought it up.
It's not technically a hot take. It is Snake Banter. It's all good. Everything's a hot take now.
Yeah, I know. But everything's a hot take for me nowadays. No, it's that actually karrigan should wait for Fallen to retire and take his spot on Furia. That's what he needs, because then he would get the star players, because a lot of the style that Furia played last season when they were good was built on good set pieces, which I assume people like Sid and Yekindar bring to the table, but then like 1 to 2 times per half, they would have an excellent mid-round on the fly. And that's what karrigan's specialty is, having players that can react to a sudden call where he makes a read or Yekindar makes a read where they say, guys, this is the bomb site that we think has more people on it. We're going to shift back to the other bomb site. I think karrigan would fit incredibly well. And I feel like that's something that Furia actually lost this season. I don't see them going for those mid-rounds anymore. They almost never have them in this season, which is why I think Fallen's going to probably retire himself within the next few months. And so that would be, to me, the right home for him on a team that seems like they need a spark themselves. So I'm out on this take. I get it. I get it. The fragging is abysmal, but at Bucharest, he's one of the highest rated players. He's one of the best players.
Furia and Maus, I think, are the two teams he has a chance on. Furia and Maus are the two teams he has a chance on. If he doesn't get on those, it's over. Just hang it up. Just end it.
All right, I have a quick clarifying question then. Like, you did say, like, he's not out calling people as fragging's terrible, but you also then said if he was on like a super team, it could still maybe work. Are you meaning the angle that since you have him as the GOAT, you just want him to retire while he has like some semblance of being the GOAT? Because I know what you mean in the sense that, like, I'll give you the example. The reason why it's also boring, like, I don't mind doing how good is Zemu. Is Zemu the GOAT? Zemu versus Donk, Zemu versus Monty. The reason why Simple versus Zemu was asked now is, there's a bunch of kids that never saw Simple. Like, they just saw the last 2 years and they think, like, what is this who you're talking about? They don't get, like, what he used to be like. Is that also why you want him to retire now, so he doesn't just end up, like, withered at the end and nobody even knows he was any good or something like that?
That's almost exactly it.
Right.
It's not that he couldn't. If he got onto a super team, if he got on, I kind of like the Fury one. Maus is the one that I've really thought maybe there's an actual chance. But, like, I don't want to see him go to tier 2 and just be unable to succeed in tier 2. I don't want to see him drop down and be like JW is now, where you go, I forgot that guy's still playing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see that. I want karrigan to retire when he's still the GOAT.
Or the one where fucking Twist or whatever was on that team. I can't remember the name. Alliance or whatever, where it was like, oh, he's still playing. Twist, the old one. Yeah, go on now. What are you going to say?
Sorry, I got lost into your point.
Oh, whatever.
Actually. No, it was... the getting him on Maus actually would be a pretty good... that's kind of the place that I felt like he should go over Brolin before. But I also agree with Vu's point, because look at what happened to Glaive and some of the luster on his name and how that more or less kind of came ooff once he went to Ents. I don't think that... I mean, that didn't really show the best that he had to offer, because when you're playing with, Nate2 and Pody and whatever, like, you just can't call the same. There's been a lot of IGLs in history that have shown they can get a team up to top, wherever their ceiling is, top 20 in the world, top 10 in the world, top 15 in the world. But then people like, I would say, Daps and Snappy, for example, are people that we know they can build systems, but we know that they're not going to be championship contenders with almost any assembly of players. That's just kind of where they were hard capped, because they had, like, but then you think of the Glaive, the karrigan, the Fallen styles. I'm not really certain that any of those styles anymore would be set for building up for guys that are inexperienced. That's kind of more what Jame's doing nowadays. But then you kind of see the ceiling where it's just, if you kind of bootstrap a team with more like set plays, more execute heavy, you're not going to end up beating the top 2 or 3 teams in the world with regular consistency.
But it's, I know what you mean on the sense of, like, if you want to, like, defend his legacy, you don't want to see him, like, wither out and go out with a whimper instead of a bang. Because I actually made a point, I forget if it was on this show or actually Hot Take Point Man, I had a take that was like that actually said, unironically, the way Glaive lost the GOAT IGL debate is just keep playing and have that stupid period of events. Like, if he'd have just retired the second the Stralis sort of, like, kicked him, a lot of fans would have gone, well, who would have known how he would have done with international? We would have done that. And so the joke is, even though in the meantime, karrigan won 1 major, he made a bunch of finals, that alone allowed him to win, because karrigan remained world-class for years and years and years, even into CS2. Glaive just kept being, like, at this point in time, like a journeyman who wasn't even at the lands. And yeah, it did end up being that at the end. The kids were like, who's this Glaive guy? Maybe it was just Device or some bullshit like that, or Debris when he won in Vitality. No, here's the thing. I don't agree in this sense that, like, when you're an all-time great player, I always have this rule. I just care if you want to keep playing. playing. So even when like Elijah had his drop off, or Simple now when he's doing this comeback, but he still hasn't fully committed, karrigan if he says he's going to play. If you were like that great, well, one, I do still think if you really ever did get the right players, you could still make one last run and be really great still. And also, these are like special individuals who have like a crazy mentality, and at their peak, they've done so many impressive things. But that's also just being a fan. You know what I mean? Like essentially, the real answer to like why I don't want like karrigan kicked from a team is I want to watch karrigan play. Like, I'm not saying he's better than everyone else, but that's also why you better bring me someone fire to replace him. Fuck that shit from 3 years ago of like kick San and shoe here. How did that work out, cocksucker? Exactly. Shut the fuck up. At least if you'd have told me they were bringing in some like stud, I'd said, okay, we can give that a go. So I will say this. I do think in phase, it's why if you noticed, one of my narratives I changed this year was coming into this year, I was like, you know what? FaZe has 3 world-class pieces. They've got karrigan IGL, Trozen and Twist as riflers. But then I realised they haven't though, because karrigan only becomes a world-class piece with amazing rosters. And if he doesn't have an amazing roster, he's no longer an amazing piece. That's why, if you notice this year, as soon as Twists and Frozen fell off of it, they had nothing. They had literally nothing in that team whatsoever. Like, people forget that major. Frozen was propping them up like a motherfucker in some of those games. He would have to drop like a 30 bomb to beat Red Canids, for fuck's sake. So, no, they had nothing. So I will say his style just isn't effective unless he has a super team. Part of that even makes me think he almost did like buy into his own hype a little bit, because, bro, I saw karrigan in earlier CSGO. He ran teams that had real strats. When he actually used to have the Astralis core, they ran actual proper T-sides and stuff and had like layered strats, and different people used the AWP. But the problem is, because that became his ultimate gimmick, like I am the god caller in the golden round and I'm all the conditioning king and I can match up against anyone. Well, you notice how like that really should be like the extra thing that puts you over the top. It can't be the one thing that you did.
Yeah.
And I do think he almost leaned into that thing. By the way, I've heard KD did the same thing in that Team Liquid Super Team of like, oh, I don't just make the calls. All my calls are golden. And you're just on some like, it's not really StarCraft, bro. You are playing a team game. You have to like work with your teammates the better. Like, there are limitations to what you can do. So I will say that has gone. And then also, realistically, I know what you mean about the teams he has to join. The reason why those 3 names are the only plausible ones he could join is because realistically, as you've seen in FaZe, he has to have not just one star, he has to have 3 HLTV top 20 players. Now, if he has those, he can work miracles. He can go as far as you want at the major. He can upset any team. The problem is, how many teams have those players and then still need an IGL? I'll go one further as well, boys. Here's why, actually, I think, sadly, he's not getting in any of these teams, and it's FaZe or bust or he retires. Here's why. Because I also think one thing in the modern day that will go heavily against karrigan is what allowed him to get this crazy status as the GOAT IGL, which is no fucking, even though he had Zonic, but that was before he won, etc. Nobody ever goes in a GOAT conversation, yeah, but karrigan had this coach. If anything, his whole appeal is you don't need a coach. The coach is like a fucking demo assistant / water boy, and karrigan does it all, right? Every team now is based around the coach, as far as I can tell. So I'm sorry, there's no world where you're ever getting into like Blade's team. Blade wants to run the team, not you. Not if you call shit. He wants to refer to page 17 at the end of the round. Even a team like G2, mate, that's Saw's project. He wants to run the team, his vision of CS. I think even Mouse, I wonder, Cyclone, that's his baby. He got all those players in. He even himself, if anything, showed Shuey, it's my team, not yours, mate. And wasn't I right? Sort of. It's a debatable one. So the problem I also think is I don't know if he'd get any of these teams, mate. Like, even though I might put them in them tomorrow and say, give the 4 Mouse players one last run with karrigan, see if you go in the match. If you don't, break it up or whatever, they're not going to do that. I don't think that's the way these teams think. I think everyone's got a systems-based approach now where you're trying to improve in these small areas and work on this. karrigan's approach is more like romantic and old school of like, put the players in and I can give you that miracle run at the big event. That's not really what CS is now, unfortunately. In fact, I'll even add in one last reason. I actually think what he just did with FaZe kills his chances dead of getting to any team. And here's why. Because in the modern day now, it's not even just about a miracle run at the major. Bro, to get into the major, you have to have results in tournaments. And you have to have results in tournaments to get invites. And then you've got to make use of those. So there's no longer, I can just wait like they did in 2024 at the end in 2025. You can't wait till the end of the season and make a run at the major. You have to actually be good in the tournaments in between. And sadly, he hasn't done that for quite a while now. Even if, yes, you can say the players sucked in the teams. Sad reason is, the reason why I think it would have been a good hot take if there's a hot take point made is, you have picked, I think, you know what, I'm going to say it right now, I think he is now the most beloved player in the history of Counter-Strike. Like, he's the only one I know where, except for real lunatics, even people who don't think he's the GOAT, like, I love karrigan. Like, he's not that guy where, you hate the other guy that you wish that guy. Everyone loves him. And also, because he's mastered how to do the cry after the loss / the sad tweet, he's also got that thing where it pulls at your heartstrings. Like I bet you felt like a piece of shit when you even came up with this take, low-key even, didn't you? I bet there's some guilt involved.
I'm saving him. I'm saving him from himself.
Oh, there you go. That's his
long to see karrigan.
Okay.
I long to see karrigan in a Falcons, in a Spirit's not gonna, but like a Maus.
Yeah.
The Fury idea. I want to see this. I truly believe he gets on these teams. He makes them better. He improves them. The problem is I don't want to watch him fail to get on those teams forever, go down to tier 2, and then once he's in Glaive's, nobody wants Glaive off of Ents. Nobody wants to pick up this.
I just can't handle that you're coping, that you're doing this for karrigan. As though it's like karrigan's like there in the bed, like, I'll walk again, Fu, I promise. And you know what? I'm going to do it with FaZe as well. And you're like, oh, I think it's time to go to sleep, karrigan. And when he drifts off, you just unplug the machine on the way out the door. Like, you know what? This is better for everyone, isn't it? Like, to put the close sign on the door, it's over. He's dead. He's done.
Put him out of his misery, man.
Listen, I can't. At this point, I can't really say shit, can I? He's at the absolute bottom. They lose to everyone, literally. Bro, when they lost that one at fucking PGL, I was like, there actually is no limit to who they can lose to. Like, it's everyone now. Right, Maui, what is your bad point?
My bad point, I think a lot of people have watched the interview with Dastan on PARIVISION and their players. I am going to lightly echo that. I feel like he was a bit harsh on them, if I'm being completely honest. I feel like some of the reason that the PARIVISION players aren't always as good in every situation as they could be is because they think about the system, the repercussions of their, I guess, missteps. And if they are to mess up, then what's to happen after the fact? I almost feel like basically the point is that PARIVISION's players are at times holding them back, but I also think sometimes the system holds the players back. Basically, because they are so afraid of stepping out of line, you just don't always see them as individuals take some of the same risks as you would a team like Mongols. And so because I think it's so ingrained in their heads, with seemingly the exception of Zwei, that if they have a death that's untradeable, then that's unforgivable. It feels like sometimes they're kind of cagey in the way that they play themselves, and it doesn't lead to... It leads to very standard situations playing out too often, with the exception sometimes that they're stacking. So, example being, they're playing against the Mongols. They have 3 B-site defenders in at least 2 of their rounds on the gun rounds in this loss to them on their... basically, they choked away the whole half, 10 rounds in a row. And 2 of those rounds were like super standard where they just had 3 guys on the bomb site. And they're just never pushing. They're never getting aggressive. They're never really doing any kind of like unique setup. A player's not really taking over. They're trying to hold these really standard crossfires, but really standard crossfires can get beat by good executes, which, by the way, the Mongols do have. When the Mongols want to hit a bomb site, they know how they want to flash. They know what pieces of key utility they need in order to make it hard for those defenders. And I just think that this is kind of... It's a give and a take, and maybe it should have been an ugly point, but I think my ugly point itself more so merits that category. It's just that PARIVISION players aren't great, but the system for PARIVISION doesn't really allow for greatness from individuals.
I think it's actually kind of incredible how far they've come with that, because I think you could argue the entirety of modern CS is a lot of the time based around giving your players agency, giving them the ability. Like it's too obvious if you're going for the old school, like Inferno, you take banana control, then you take mid control, then you decide you go B or A. It's too obvious. You have players take mid and banana control at the same time, but you have to give them the agency to make those decisions, to make those plays when they think it's right. And it even goes into one of the things Furia was talking about when they were kind of on their way to becoming really good, was we need to have our players be solid, and when they have a read, we trust the read, but we're not forcing them to make plays. We're not forcing them to do things that they don't want to do just because this is the way the round should play out on paper in like an ideal system. We let them make their decisions. Every team, when I see them talk about these things, they talk about enabling their players so that they can make the right call at the right moment. And PARIVISION is, they kind of do the opposite. And I don't think that it's not even just that it doesn't allow the players the ability to perform that well. It's going to make them it doesn't allow them to play at their best CS, you know? Even if you have a player that can be a really good pop-off player. And sometimes, I mean, you see it sometimes from PARIVISION. Like, one of the most impressive things I think about PARIVISION is their ability to multi-frag on site holds from like an anchor that he has utility left over. He gets a multi-frag you never expect from him. But that comes and goes, and it seems like a lot of the time it's going recently, like you're saying. I mean, it's a lot of the time they're missing even getting one kill from those players, and I can definitely see the argument. I kind of support this that they're just not given enough agency to feel comfortable in their spots, to feel like they can make a play when they know a play is on paper. I think it's impressive how well they've done without that, to be honest, because that seems like modern CS has always gone in the opposite direction.
This is why I actually think PARIVISION is in a really weird spot. It's just the problem is you can't complain, because I agree with you guys. Like, the things they already accomplished are miraculous. Like, insane props to Dastan, to Jame. Like, it's bonkers. Like, I don't even do that thing. I thought the shittest narrative coming into this year was the stupid thing of like, hey, it's the Zwei redemption app. Take that, Spirit. It's like, all he does is fucking just shoot people with a rifle on CT side stood still. Like, he's not even doing it. By the way, he is one of the better players in this team, but just by virtue, he has a consistent role. Like, the best player in the team, in theory, is Jame. And then after that, I think probably the more skills like Zello or something like that. The problem is, though, if you look at this team, it has no business being as good as it is. But unfortunately, this is where I think they're like sort of painted into a corner. Because as far as I can tell, the real reason why they are so good is because they quite literally are like 4 bots that just do whatever Jame says instantly on both CT and on T side. And that's why everyone who does this thing, I catch myself doing it as well. I watch them play a game, because I always tell people, whenever they have an awesome game against a top 5 team, and God forbid beat them, I'm just waiting for that next group stage. Give me the shittest teams in the tournament, because I promise it's going to be close when PARIVISION plays them. Like, they could lose to so many of these teams. It's crazy. They still almost do. They still have to like clutch it out against the shittest teams at the bottom of the group stage in the Swiss system. Like, there are no good draws for this team. It's impossible. And so as a result, the real problem I run into is you start thinking to yourself, well, that's the biggest problem, isn't it? They've got no firepower compared to like teams that can make semis and finals like they can. So you look at it, because by the way, I'll tell you right now, if you look at the placings they're already getting, and they're still going to make, top playoffs at every other tournament and make the odd semis run, the joke's going to be, this is why Jame is going to get crazy reppers at IGL. He's going to finish the year with like a whole bunch of quarters and semis, and he'll have 0 players in the HLTV top 20. Like, I don't even think Zwei will make it. He might make it himself. That might be the one thing. Maybe in Bait will get like a few EVPs and get him, but even then he'll be 20th. So it will be a miracle that he accomplished that. But the problem becomes, you think to yourself, mate, Russia's got infinity good players, especially like strong rifle players. But then every single one, I start thinking in my mind, would I put this guy in the team? Would they do what James says though? Wouldn't they come in like other, real players, remember, want their own agency, and they want to like, for example, one of the things I think is miraculous about how they attack on T-side when they finally run in with no seconds left to get the bomb down is, bro, most modern players can't do that. Modern players who even we call entries, they fucking jiggle the corner. They try to take a favourable duel. They like slow down a second when they know the nade's coming. He wants you to do like some noob fucking like pickup shit, like just rush B. That's like a real strat for them on T side. Unfortunately, I don't know how many players can do that. So I do think they're hitting their ceiling. And what we're discovering is just this, is their floor is crazy and the ceiling's really good for calling, but you're never going to really be like the team who can outblast the other teams, and you're always going to be at the mercy of, if you ever have, by the way, it happened in a couple of games here, if one of your players ever shit, you've just done so. Like, if someone looks up the ranking this year, it would actually shock you. After Jame and Zwei, who have decent ranking, every other player is below 1.0 rating for the year. All 3 of them. Yep. So they just take turns being shit, guys. So there's not really much going on there. I don't know what you can do. I also don't know how you can upgrade the team. So I also agree, though. If we're going to take events like Bounty and the ones where they make the finals as the examples of where they can be excellent, this is the flaw, though. The flaw can just be they can lose to a lot of teams who are bad and otherwise wouldn't win the tournament. That's what's bizarre. They can beat teams that can win the tournament. They can lose to teams who can't. I mean, they even almost lost to some of the teams in the group stage here, mate.
Yeah, the going back to some of the agency and the lack thereof with the team, it's kind of I think the thing about PARIVISION is that actually as soon as they won Bounty, I did say that they were never going to win they weren't going to win any more trophies for the season. And I think that now you're kind of seeing the extent of having a lot of cheeky setups, because even looking at their loss also at Rotterdam, Rotterdam versus Navi in the semifinals, they got themselves into a position where they did a 3B stack on the final round of CT side versus Navi. And the thing is that Na'Vi went into it. They actually ran into the stack. But the thing is that they just hard cleared every angle that even though it was the 3B stack and it's supposed to work, when you only have a predictable amount of ways that you stack a bomb site and that you sit on the bomb site, then you're readable, and the execs still are so powerful against you. And it feels kind of weird that there's just none of that kind of X factor potential from the team. That's kind of how I would put it. Whereas you'll always have a player from Vitality who is trying to just get a little bit of info on their own. Sometimes it's a little bit dangerous, but they allow those kinds of risks. Falcons, they take probably too many risks. Spirit, on the other hand, actually, I'm not even going to try to assess Spirit's CT side. It's kind of a mess right now. But like, there's kind of the risk reward element of a lot of CT sides, but PARIVISION play in a way that's just the only risk they seem to take is in a macro setting, never in a micro setting, which to me is concerning because, yes, like Vu said, you just kind of become predictable.
Okay, we'll go on then. I will do my bad point. And mine is going to be actually a simple one. I'm going to do one that I haven't heard anyone talk about on any of the talk shows, though. In amongst all the big names that failed the major and had these, like, close calls at the end, the one that I thought was actually a bomber is one of those teams where I don't think anyone even hits on this team. It's just a wholesome team. It just didn't work. Was when they did this Passion UA gamble where they took in Senzu and Try. By the way, I even remember seeing those moves and thinking, what are people like FaZe doing that? People like that are on the market that you can even get them. Like, how did they ever fall all the way to, like, a Passion UA, a team that normally for real is having to like scramble like for an NA player and trying to get some like unknown European, like you would expect them to be the ones taking some random Russian AWP, you know. So I looked at those players and I was like, first of all, these are like tenured players that are legit players in their old past teams. Secondly, if you actually saw some of the games they played, like people probably saw that crazy Senzu had it, there were some games that were good. Like, by the way, Senzu played pretty well most of the time. Like, he actually looked that he fit in the squad. He was looking a bit like Mongol Senzu. I also, people know this, I have a very big soft spot for JT. I think he's a real caller. I think it seems like he does his homework, has a good mentality, works with whatever pieces he got. And if you ever look, they were in a lot of these games. Like, they had a sneaky chance to maybe make it. Now, look, it's not over. Technically, Senzu's on loan, but they've got other tournaments to play in. They're going to play more of it. But for now, that is kind of a bomber. Because that was one of those ones where, a bit like with an IP, I look at the roster, I'm like, this isn't that far from being good, actually. Like, and I don't dislike most of these players. I kind of cheer for these players. So I think it's just kind of sad that that's an example of a squad that just ended with a whimper. Like I say, because everyone was watching Liquid and fucking, I mean, the joke by the end is every top team was losing. Aurora was losing at those shitlands. G2 lost at one of them. I don't think people even noticed this team didn't make it, mate. No give a fuck at the end. What do you think, Vu?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team where I think they were kind of like, you'd argue that with their previous roster, they're supposed to be maybe sneaking into the first stage of the major.
Yes.
So you see them make what are supposed to be upgrades. I mean, I've always thought Try is, when I first saw him, I thought he was going to be amazing because I saw him against some pretty weak competition when he was only competing in South America that didn't throw flashes. And I've lost a little bit of faith that he's going to be the best out there. But he's still an opera I really enjoy watching. Senzu, obviously, like who can say Senzu isn't one of the best players? Yeah. And to see this team fail to make the major, it's sad. But I don't know if I want to give up on them. I don't know if I want to give up on them yet. If they can maintain Senzu, because when I look at the games from Passion UA, I do feel like sometimes there's still something missing in terms of the communication, where it feels like players aren't on the same page. And that's just kind of expected when you have a team that picks up a Senzu. You don't know how good the communication on this team is going to be. And you see JT, and he's a caller that typically plays with teams for long periods of time, that he builds out, that he's like, they're kind of on the same page the way they want to play things. I think it takes a little bit of time. The question is just, are they going to keep Senzu? Do we have any idea how long Senzu's actually on that roster for?
No idea.
Oh, yeah.
Because the problem is, I think what is confusing people is, famously, the most famous loan player is Simple was twice loaned, wasn't he, to like the shit Falcons, and then he obviously went eventually to FaZe. And I can tell you, that one was because he had to pay like 100k a month. Yeah, those ones lasted a month or two. Like, well, but I'm going to guess when they say on loan here, it just means until they decide to either call him back or his contract runs out. So it could just be for months more. Who knows at this point in time, right? We don't know. Hasn't been any indication given, really.
My faith in this team lies on the fact that I have faith in JT. I actually think that if you have a roster with talent, with Senzu on the roster, I don't see this team not succeeding over time. It's just a matter of getting there. And I do think that I feel like we've seen growing pains in terms of like communication clearly breaking down from this team at times that I think is fixable. But yeah, I guess it is a good bad point in that, yeah, it is a team that's forgotten about. It is a team, I don't even know if there's any threads made about them missing the tournament, missing the major, because they're all the threads are about FaZe and the other major teams that are missing.
Yeah. Okay, Maui. If someone, go on.
Well, I have to give a take
sorry,
on
you didn't
this.
give yours. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. No, it's just I mean, I think you guys covered most of it. I mean, the only time I watched this team in depth was the EPL Stage 1, which was pretty much their debut event. Things I noted from that tournament for how they played was just disconnected, which is pretty expected when you have 5 guys from 5 different continents. So I kind of wrote that off and hoped that they would right the ship before the major cutoff. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. They kind of continue to stumble through some of these events and everything. I mean, what's crazy is that, like, despite the fact that they're not winning all the time, Senzu is still going nuclear in a lot of these sort of tournaments. I kind of wish that JT had him for a more serious contract, because I feel under these circumstances, as Vu alluded to, with him being on loan from the Mongols still, it makes it difficult to put your whole heart into whatever's happening here. Oh, everyone is professional, should do their absolute best at all times, but trying to have a guy catch up to speed on your entire strat book the way you want to put rounds together it's a little bit more difficult to do when you think, is this guy here for 5 months? Is he here for a year, 2 years? What is it? That being said, if you have any sort of idea about how well Senzu is playing, then we have the app for you. If you want to support us here at Last Free Nation and PrizePicks, you can download the PrizePicks app today and use code SNAKE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code SNAKE, SNAKE, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And really, I feel like if you're just looking to get in on any kind of sports action, think occasionally esports as well, you can head over to their website. This is available in every state as far as I know.
50 states.
Yeah, all 50 states it's available in. And then you can get in on the action. You can check your favorite players. If you think they're going to have a good game, think they're going to have a bad game, be sure to check them out and use PrizePicks as your daily fantasy option in order to try to just see, do you know ball? Actually, because we obviously act like we know ball, but why wouldn't you want to win money by truly knowing ball? So go to PrizePicks, download their app, use code SNAKE, get $50. Why not?
Okay, we will now move traditionally back. We're in the good section now. So, Vu, what's good at the moment? What are you enjoying?
This one I might be controversial. I'm interested. I think this is kind of a self-indulgent one in that I actually think the push towards advanced stats and the people that we have pushing them has made conversation about CS a lot more interesting. You have Luz Raposa. I would never have guessed that's how you pronounce his name. He's been in my Discord and some of my communities for a while. And he's got a lot of really interesting looks on how the game should be played. Sometimes I have a take and I bounce it off him. Yeah. Kind of, I'm sure Maui might do this with beat rounds where it's like, hey, do you have any stats that support this? And he'll like give me a
that was my joke. They're like your stats goblin that has to run away and just go on a supercomputer and go, you're right, but here's how. And then you're like, I will retweet this. Yes, I am right. I knew that too.
I'll just be like, I noticed this from watching their game, but I can't find any stats that support me. Can you tell me I'm not crazy? And they'll be like, yeah, actually this stat over here like says that you're like completely right, like here or occasionally completely wrong. But you're completely right based on these stats. And I love that we have beat rounds. I love that he's getting obviously work. He's putting on, we see it on the broadcast at Blast. Luz Raposa getting on this talk show on this broadcast is why I brought this up, because to me he was just this guy that like I liked what he did. I don't know if I didn't know if there was that much founding for it for other people to enjoy it, but I see a lot of people retweeting his stuff now. Like I see all these stats he's putting out, and I actually kind of think it's low key because of round swing. The push away from round swing, people are like, hey, HLTV rating isn't like the only thing you have to worry about. Like maybe HLTV rating isn't right all the time, and so you have people kind of looking at like, what are the other ways you can look at these things? What are the other ways you can do this stuff? And any push away from HLTV rating being the only thing that people care about, to me is a very solid change. I just like that you're seeing people respect the advanced stats as much as, like, generally, if I make a video, if I focus on everything other than stats and I just talk about the narratives, that's going to be the most viewed video. I would like to see the stats there to back it up, and to see them getting respect, to see them getting, their props. I think it's good, and it's advanced the way people talk about CS to some extent.
Agreed. I think also moving away from the HLTV hegemony is always a plus for the space. I just think that it's not in our best interest to have one website control as much of the stats-driven narrative as it has over the course of the last 8 or so years, 9 years, where people just refer to ratings and just say good player, good stat, bad player, bad stat. That's why I've had to go out on a list. It's weird how that's actually the case, except for Blame F. Gets good stat, but
True.
still bad player.
I know.
Okay.
He's the exception that proves the rule, I guess. I know.
Yeah. But then there are of course certain support players who generally are going to have worse stats by HLTV's metrics, I still see value in what it is that they're doing. So the stats that people like Luz and B-Trams have been pulling up are great because it's just also giving the public access to it. Because it seemed like there were always similar types of metrics and numbers that HLTV had. It seemed like they referred to some of them in some of their articles occasionally, especially about top 20 player lists. But then we would never really be able to sift through those ourselves. And for people now to just publish those freely and willingly, it allows us to really sharpen the way that we construct our stories and make sure that we just aren't kind of just bullshitting as much. I think that's kind of important. It's important because when B-Trams is in my chat, as he frequently is when I'm doing my co-streams, I'll come up with an idea. He'll kind of make a name for that stat, sort of make a light algorithm to plug that stat in, and then come up with it. I think the first example that he kind of got popular with was when on my stream I kind of was like, what about players that when they're in man-up situations die and then they lose the round? Which was
the Bozo and the clawback one, yeah?
Yeah, which was Bozo stats, and then the guy that's getting the kill to win the round is the clawback, yeah. And so that kind of became a fun little metric to just kind of see who are the guys that are throwing the most leads, who are the guys that are making the most for their teams in deficit situations.
Does it say something about you, Maui, that the difference is, Fo's asking for, who's the best with the utility? Maui's like, am I right to hate on Spigs? Yes, he's getting a lot of Bozo kills. That you've invented a new stat as to why he fucking sucks. Like, okay, I love that.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, I just think that trends over the course of that period of time are valuable in assessing a player's worth on a team. So I'm glad that it's not just because sometimes people will play more selfishly than others. People will, and I think that those kinds of numbers should be outed for just the fact that they're getting a lot of eco kills. Obviously, was the topic we had in the past, but in general, I agree with the point. I like the direction that Counter-Strike's headed right now. I like that it's also in a more, I would say, open source sort of market where it's not just a singular community site that holds all of the information, but multiple people that are sifting through the data by parsing all the demos such that we can go through it as they list it.
I think it's mega personally. Like, actually, I talked to people on this on my Discord. I said it on Twitter. I actually think, unironically, this like wave of how they're doing, like, because notice it's not just the stat, it's how they are then able to model where you can draw conclusions from it and you can then use it for analytical purposes. One of the biggest problems they have in sports, if anyone watches like the NBA, they have loads of advanced stats. They're really hard to like intuitively understand what they mean, though. That's the problem. And they're really hard to understand like how you could like make a team using them and stuff like that. The difference to all these ones is they're modeling them and even the way they do the graphs, so that you can actually really quickly say who's the best and who's the worst of this, and then you get a sense of like how you would balance these things out in a team, or why a team has certain strengths and certain weaknesses. So first of all, I think it's great. Like I actually said to people, I think like people like the Loz guy, because a lot of his work is for things like what roster moves make sense, and so I actually said I think that's going to actually change the way not only teams are built, but that we even talk about team roster moves. Because the obvious example I gave him was I'm really impressed with how he's drilled down and he's sort of like dividing out the entry and playmaking roles on like aggressive rifle. Because, you know, before we used to just take like aggressive rifle, it's just one role. And so we all acted like when you added electronic and Axel, they're going to tear them up. They don't. It turns out you need one of them to like be the shit guy who runs in like Malbs, and then that's actually better for you than having both electronic and Axel. So the example he gave recently, which was a great one, was I agree with him. I actually thought, even though Nertz is a better rifler than Malbs, it makes way more sense to have Malbs sort of be the bait for Elige to make Elige's game really good. You've seen already, but Elige's numbers go right back up. It didn't make sense. Having the two of them, it was almost like they were doing both inappropriate role sets. Like you have no one to throw the lob to the person going to dunk it in this analogy. So the roles one's an obvious one. Then if you think about stuff like, I actually think you've seen a lot of great stuff now about utility and how people work with that side of the game. There are so many myths being dissolved by those stats, it is crazy. Me and Maui were like basically talking about this on Twitter today. A classic angle that Zemu fans will tell you goes like this. Donk just has the numbers because he is force-fed an AK every round, but Zemu isn't selfish and he doesn't take resources. That's literally factually untrue. It is provably the opposite. Zemu gets the most high-quality weapons of any player in Counter-Strike. Donk actually was not even close to the top. He was way further back. And then also, what's the other one they all go? Donk just gets the whole team flashing for him, where Zemu gets nothing. Actually, it's the other way around. Actually, Apex has the most insane utility usage in the game. They have infinity flashes for people like Flames. Donk, actually, Spirit's kind of shit at throwing flashes in this version of Spirit. Like, you're on some, like, Katowice 2024 shit, boys. You're miles in the past on that one. So you actually get, like, some massive big narratives that fans just repeat over and over again, like, around the campfire, are just exposed to be nonsense, like the infamous Blame F one, where they're like, he only kills ecos. I'll always tell this. It was proven he's insane against ecos. He was also equally good against full buys. Like, it wasn't one or the other. It was both. That was the problem. You couldn't actually use that to say he was shit, because he was clearly really good. If anything, you'd have to go outside of stats to ship poor Blameless for his bad, like Maui's point. It'd have to be something like communication, or he wants things played his way, but that'll never show up on a scoreboard. On the scoreboard, he was excellent. So I would just say this angle. Also, I do agree with it. By the way, obviously, we've actually on this show especially supported these people. Nero was the first one, because he came with the stats, but they also did the interesting modelling. Then you had B-Trams, who was doing all Maui's bidding. Now you have loads of posters coming in, doing all these great angles to do it with. And I'll even say this. I know what you mean, Vu. My favourite one, because listen, I'm human. Everyone loves a bit of confirmation bias, mate. It's like that Blame F1. Mate, I get like 1% of an orgasm when I saw that. I was like, he's mathematically proven Blame F's good. Oh, this is all I need. Hit retweet. Dickheads love stats. Retweet. And I'll tell you where I'm always torn, Vu. Because obviously, essentially, even though this is going to sound mad, this is what we mean by eye test. We're just intuitively picking some of these things up from how many games we've got, and like, you know, remembering things in our brain, how we model them. But we haven't got the ironclad, like, exactly this stat and this stat, and he does it in this way. So it's a great way to actually explain. Because really, when you say eye test, you're saying, trust me, you're a fucking pleb, but I know what's going on. And to them, that's like, they think that's snake oil, don't they? There is no such thing as an eye test, Launders. Zemu is the goat. Like, it's all that shit, isn't it? Which was the real argument, if you don't know. In a way, God bless them. I love Zemu fans. They're endless entertainment. They actually did argue with the Launders that there is no such thing as either eye test or X Factor. Basically, whatever you say Zemu isn't, that doesn't exist. You made that up just to hate on Zemu. But also, like Nero, like John Connor, you had to come back in time to actually like prevent Zemu from being the best or something, with some narrative about arena rating or some shit. The last thing is this, though. Even though I love retweeting when it is a stat that confirms my bias, the one that always tortures me, because listen, I don't retweet the ones that say I'm fucking wrong. Man. Listen, that's for you, the hater, to do. I'm not going to do your fucking job for you, bitch. I'm just going to retweet the shit I like. The one that does tear me, though, is like, you know, B-Tramps. He's the one who doesn't know. I would retweet more of your shit, because the ones that give me pause is I see always the left side, who's the really best at this stat. Oh, my boys are all there. Monacy's high up. Fucking NiKo's better than you expect. I'm about to hit retweet. And then I see on the bad side, like, fuck, that's one of my favourite players, is right at the top. Oh, well, I've got to weigh it up. Which is it? Is it worth being right about Monacy? But do I have to give up that, like, I don't know, Elisia's actually a bomb and just, like, you know, fucking greedy or something and not using weapons? Like, oh, that retweet becomes like a real fucking But I'll tell you what, I usually do it. I also agree, by the way. I actually think the people actually, this is why we're glazing them, the people who benefit from the most from this is literally us. It's people who do content and talk shows. Because actually, like Maui said there, I'll give you the joke. If anyone ever saw, there was like an all-time classic Bill Burr skit about how he thought Steve Jobs was overrated. And even though he's slightly wrong, because Steve Jobs is doing his own eye test, he's doing, creativity and envisioning what's possible. He is right that what Steve Jobs used to do is he wasn't actually an engineer, remember? He would just go into a room with some insanely overworked engineers and just go like, hey, you... when I do this with my fingers, like the screen has to like expand, and then they'd be like, well, how would you even shut up and get on it? I want it done by Monday. I've said it's ready on Sunday. And they're like, sir, they haven't even researched that possibility, the technology. They'd be like, you're fired if it's not ready on Sunday. Then that engineer would take like 20 years off his life making that app. And then at the end, we'd all go, that's Steve Jobs. He's a bloody genius, isn't he? That's what Maui's doing. Maui's going, I have an idea. What can you actually prove why I'm right about Spigs? And then Beacham's has to be like, yes, master, and then run away and start fucking making potions and fucking Eye of Newton. And after a massive process, he's like, hey, master. And then Maui just goes like, all right, retweet. I was right. And yeah, he didn't have to do nothing. He was just watching the game and fucking checking out his Twitch or something. I don't know. I do like that part too. It's self-indulgent. We all need to have someone like that. You know.
On the topic of the retweeting thing, it also saves me because I've got the Blame F sheet where it shows that Blame F, the reason he was thought of as like a eco hunter is because he went for so many opens, so passive on gun rounds, and so aggressive on anti-egos. But like actually NiKo got more of his percent of his kills against pistols. Okay. But there's other stats I've done. Like one time I went in and I tried to prove the side of the map you start on doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. Okay. Hypothetically, it shouldn't matter. Okay. So I went to map 3 of games, and I think I went to map 3 and it was like games that were at least close. Like both teams got double digits. So it's like not one team getting blown out. And all it did was prove that the actually starting on the better side does matter and gives you like a 2% advantage. Okay. That never got tweeted. I spent like 8 hours fighting. I'm like, this is wrong. No. Okay, move on. Yeah. On to the next thing. Now I can just ask someone else to do it.
But it's like I say, we're not frauds. We won't lie and say it didn't happen. But I'm not going to do your work for you as a hater. Retweet some shit that says I'm an idiot who's just talking out my ass. Like, you figure that out. You calculate and keep a track of all the stuff I'm talking about lunatics.
I also one thing I want to bring up is that I do actually think that it's good in general for the greater sport that it can lead to growth. Where I feel like this is kind of another topic, but it's just that I kind of felt like CS was in a little bit of a lull in terms of viewership or things to pick on, but I feel like you get viewers because of big stars. Star names help draw them in, but having more facets to dig into helps retain people. So people can have greater and greater discussions about it. It's kind of like baseball's sabermetrics movement hasn't really been what pushed baseball to have the 3-year consecutive viewership boosts. It's kind of people like Shohei Ohtani, but it's people like Aaron Judge and Ohtani who have kind of like drawn everybody in. But then the staying factor is all these different ways that fans can dissect the game and look more into it. And now that the more and more tools that they have, the more likely we're going to just get more and more retention, which is obviously beneficial to everything at large.
So we have a little topic for you on the poly market here. There's one I thought, since we got an NA guest here, let's go on this one. This was set up a while ago. It was Nocries signs for a Pro CS2 organization by June 30th. So there's still a bit of time. This is actually at 44% chance, according to the traders on Polymarket. I thought this would be way lower. It says basically it has to just be on like any pro organization, right? Obviously, it has been rumoured. Some fans, obviously, there's still some Reddit hype, even though it was last year, that whole story. What do you think, Vu? Do you have a sense that this guy ever goes pro? Is it implied that he's trying to find a team and he's going to be pro? Is he just going to be some sort of face-it sensation? What do you think?
I'm not someone that has like my ear to the ground in terms of rumors, but from what I've seen, I don't think he's performed to quite the same ridiculous level since the story dropped. I think he kind of seemed to struggle a little bit after that. I haven't like gone back and checked again. What was interesting is when he went and actually played to try and prove it. He was actually a really solid opera. I could absolutely have seen him get picked up to an NRG or maybe NRG is a little bit like, you know, like a tier 2, kind of tier 3, arguably professional, depending on how, you know, what a professional organization counts for. In North America, I could definitely have seen him get picked up. I'm surprised he didn't. But at this point, it's like, what is there a reason that he should be getting picked up now? I feel like you have to vote no.
I don't see any. I mean, it is just kind of what you deem to be a professional team. Could he be on wild card maybe instead of MHL? perhaps. I even feel like that might be a little bit of a risk though nowadays. I don't really know. I mean, the hype for Nocries has really died off a lot. June 30th is also, yeah, I guess after the major. So I guess that would be a good time. So that's kind of the only value in this. Just the fact that he potentially after the major ends, you would get like, what are the realistic options? He lives in New York. He's gonna, as far as I know, he wants to play for a North American team. So you have Marsborn, who have Wolfie, Voka, who have Junior, NRG, who has OC. He's not going to be on NRG for OC or M80 for Slacks. I don't think that's going to happen. But then it's like Junior just looked actually legitimately. He actually looked really, really reasonable in some of the games that he played at Bucharest, or at least against BC Game. He looked pretty reasonable. So I wouldn't expect him to go there. It'd more be like Marsborn for Wolfie. So then you kind of have to just think, has Wolfie been bad? And that's pretty much the only angle I have on this.
By the way, I obviously don't know fuck all about this. Go on.
The problem, I think, is that he surely got some tryouts. Like, he surely got tested out by at least one or two rosters after all the news broke, he popped off. If he didn't impress enough in those tryouts for anyone to have heard about it, then I don't see why there's no team where it's just like their opera is so bad. There's no Brokey in NACS right now where he just has to get replaced, gamble on anyone. So I don't know if I just don't see it.
No, I'm with you. The real problem is if it was going to happen, it would happen when there was the crazy hype and he looked like a prodigy and he looked so insane and everyone was like, oh my God, it's just like the next player that's moved to the NA region who's super sick and he's available. If that didn't happen already by then, I don't know why it would happen after the major. Like, what team is going to fail the major or didn't make the major and goes, you know what? Solutions, Nocries. In fact, that's even the weirdest thing about this. I would have thought already, by the way, he'd be playing with like, do the thing where it's like people like Smoo you do. Even if you're not on a team, you play with like a little stack of people and you get to qualifiers and you start showing you're trying to play professionally and you get the odd scrim against someone if you're decent. As far as I can tell, he's not doing that. Does he just sit every day like streaming, playing fucking face it still?
He's he's just playing like 6 games a day or something, but not even every day. Most days, I'd say most days.
And as far as I can tell, he still also does that thing where, aside from in the game where everyone's like, on his stream, he speaks Russian loads of the time as well. Every time I've ever tuned in, mate, like he's actually like doing that angle too. So I don't know. What's weird about this? Look, technically, because it's a yes/no, this means actually the traders say it won't happen. It's just below the number. Obviously, it needs to be above 50 for it to actually be something that people think. I don't think it happens personally. I think this one's been and gone, and the whole hype of like, is it the next Z, let's not get silly. Those are like generational players, mate. We can't say everyone. Also, see, all we ever do as analysts tell them, stop saying there's a new donk. Immediately, everyone finds it's a new simple and donk. Like, why every time? Why can't it ever just be like, it's the new fucking Hunter? It's the new Axile? Be reasonable. Like, give me a chance that these players could ever make it. Like, the joke on most of them is, I don't even need to ever watch Keisuke play. I just know he isn't the next donk, and I don't even need to see his game to know that. Like, I always tell you, there shouldn't even be one donk. We're actually one over the quarter that we're supposed to have in the universe. So, now we will go to Maui's good point. What is the good point, Maui?
My good point is, well, think of the day we're recording this. Maybe it was yesterday, but I think it's today. PGL announced some of the changes upcoming for the Singapore major, and there was one that I noted that was extremely beneficial. There were a couple things in there, but the one that I really keyed in onto, and maybe you guys have some ways to add some caveats or some just words of discretion, but it's the cutoff date. The cutoff date is switched. It was for the upcoming Cologne major. I think it was April 6th to June 2nd. So it was a 57-day cutoff before the major actually happened, which in turn means it's 2 months later. Teams' forms go up and down. It almost, in a way, cut off the chances of FaZe. FaZe could have just played this Bucharest outright. Things could have probably been a little bit different for them. Who knows? They could have won a couple games at this, and that would have been all it took for them to actually make it to the major. Because I don't really want to see the major being what's supposed to be the 32 best teams of 2 months ago. Form in Counter-Strike comes and goes so frequently that who was good 2 months ago may have no business being a top 10 team or top 32 team this season. So or this time at this time. So I'm glad that the major cutoff now, if people didn't read it, it moved up to November 2nd from whereas the major starts on November 25th, which is a 23-day gap. That's under half of the amount of time that it was for Cologne. So that means, in theory, Singapore should have a more competitive major. And for me, that's just a net positive. I feel like there's in that aspect, I think that this is just such a good change for VRS.
Yeah, there's my ugly point goes into a similar topic, but I think this is just like a clear net good. I mean, the entire reason the old major system was maybe this is like the old major system where it used to be you go in the major and you based on that you had people qualifying for the following major if they got in the
you basically just moved back one round. So if you made top 8, you automatically made top 16. If you made top 16, you made it to like the offline qualifier, something like that. If you remember, that's why if it was a big deal to drop out the qualifier, for example, if you're like NIP or something.
Yeah, it was just terrible. You just have teams that are like totally different teams, or just they have no belonging in this category. They put them in there because it's months and months in the future, and it's the same thing with this. You have 2.5 months. You have multiple months before the major's coming, where you could have a team like, I mean, we mentioned Passion UA earlier. We could have a team where if they stuck together, they could be a very solid force going into the major if they made it to the major, but they already know now that they're not getting into the major. And it also, I think it saps teams that are, what's the motivation for the events following if you're a top team, if you know that your goal is the major. I think it's just bad all around to have such a gap between the qualification for the major and the major. I almost wanted to bring it up as a point as soon as I saw that. It's just such an obvious benefit. I can't even see. Surely there's some argument
I've got
for
some
why
for you.
it's
Don't
the worst
worry.
thing.
I'll always come with the negativity, but legit and totally on point and probably better than your good points. No, so here's what I'll say. By the way, in general, as an abstract concept, I agree. Like, one of the actual problems we have, unfortunately, in Counter-Strike is, in a dream world, the last tournament before the major would be the last chance to qualify. The points would just run right up to the very brink, and you'd have a miracle story on the last day where someone did get in and someone didn't get in, and it would make it like, like a normal sport. You go right down to the end of the tournament for someone to make the playoffs or to win the league or whatever. So, but the downside is this is where the negatives come in, where you can actually like make some angles on this that aren't totally overwhelmingly positive, and they go like this. The real problem why the system has to be like this, because I know it seems weird. Like, why is there a cutoff date, but then there's real tournaments afterwards? Some of them are even like stacked tournaments that are important. Like I Am Rio could be like a massive event. Like that could be where the Grand Slams won, for example, for Vitality, etc. Right? One of the reasons why, unfortunately, you can't make it that the whole season counts is because you can't have it where, like, 2 weeks before the major, someone has to get a visa that's impossible to get if it's in China or if it's in USA or it's in Schengen, depending on which region you're from. And then also, because it's the major, they have to make the stickers and approve the stickers and make all the like extra stuff. So unfortunately, there are some like practical implications that weren't necessarily around in the old days of CS that you can't get around. So I get why that is. And so unfortunately, that's the one area you can poke holes in this. For this major, it looks great. But as Messi also pointed out, the issue becomes they're probably still, for future majors, based on the region of the major, going to have to go back to extended time beforehand. Because like I say, if the major's in China, but it's weird, British passport is very good around the world. I had to get a visa to go to China. That's the thing even I have to do. Sometimes Russians, to even get to the Schengen area, it was actually Kazakhstani Falcon, but as you see, they sometimes have problems going to America and places like that, and you need a few months to like really get all your shit down, and you might not get accepted the first time. So unfortunately, it will actually hurt the majors if it's too close. So they probably also won't do this for everyone. It's probably just going to be this one initially, and they'll play it by ear, I imagine. And then the last thing is, this is one area where, unfortunately, it's a bit like, without making a whole sidebar, the reason why politics will always be shit is actually very simple. And it's not what you all think about some Illuminati shit. It's actually that you, the pleb, want what they tell you to be nice and what you want. But in doing so, it means you can never do something that's harsh and isn't like pleasant. Which, unfortunately, if you ever want to accomplish things in a really efficient manner, you often have to do things people don't want or don't understand. So essentially, the argument is this. It is really weird that we have a bunch of tournaments now. So if you're, for example, FaZe or Liquid, and you're not at the major, but you're going to play these tournaments or BC game or something, well, the problem is, it does still matter for you. You have to get VRS points for next season. You have to get invited to the next one. You're not going to be at the major to get VRS points, by the way. You actually need to farm even harder if you're FaZe or Liquid now and go crazy in these events. Like, if you're FaZe, you better make a deep run at Atlanta, mate, or this team's cooked. The whole squad might get kicked. So that is a real... And also, by the way, notice that part's tied in as well. You might think, what have some of the bad teams got to play for? Bro, the second someone like FaZe loses all their VRS core, there's no reason for that team to even exist. If you're FaZe, you pick one player or you wipe the whole deck or you shut the org down. That's even a real possibility. So, but I get that if you're a fan, that's not intuitive. When you're watching these tournaments, you're like, wait a minute, but everyone's already qualified, and this one isn't the major. It doesn't matter for this team if they win it. And it does make it weird. You want every tournament to be everyone's trying to win it, and it's all important the world to win this one tournament. And then at the end, the top 16 or whatever make the major. Whereas actually in this scenario, you could have a crazy run, and someone could even get like top 20 and then not be at the major because they already fucked it up at the cutoff point. So I agree with you. Generally, though, for this specific major, it just seems like a net good. I mean, it's going to take away a lot of the issues we have in that regard. Okay. I have gone for my good point. Listen, boys, PGL's a fucking... It's what we call in England a charity shop. It's like, you know, you might find the odd thing in there that's good. It's still used and old. It's nothing fucking straight fire new, is there? There's nothing all shiny. There's no Yeezys in there, is there? There's some fucking all right old Timberlands that haven't got that many holes in the boot, you know, and it's only £3, so all right. So I'm having to pick among the scraps here. So you know what? I've gone to the old Thorin before he became jaded and cynical, and he'd read literally 200,000 comments telling him to unalive himself in all contexts, that he's a worthless human being. My favourite is when they just attack every element of my identity. I'm not even a historian. You could just say I'm a shit one, but I'm not even one. Here's what I am. I'm always, even though I've had a million people write on the internet the truth, which is that I am a journalist and a historian, the amount of times, Vu, it's been in those air quotes, though. Those motherfucking quotes. Apparently, I'm not even that. So, here's where the old Thorin used to lean into the romance of the game, didn't he? The beauty of the game. So, you know what? Even an old, tired, jaded veteran like me could find a little bit of fucking romance in JW getting to go to a tier 1 event. Tier 1, again, I did the tier 1 esports historic tier 1 event. He went to it. Listen, technically, this is a tier 1 event on HLTV.org and on Wikipedia. Not only did he go, they got to the playoffs. He was top rated. He was carrying the first map of the playoffs, and they almost actually won that playoff series against one of the tournament favourites and would have been in the semis. Look, listen, JL, cover your ears, JW, cover your ears. It's never going to happen again. You're never going to do it ever again. You'll probably never be at any other tournaments. You're not actually good. Listen, I don't say to retire. Keep playing with those fucking people that'll never make it. But it was all a flash in the pan. But for that one brief moment, Vu, I got to believe the dream. I got to tell myself the shit I used to say, even when Kenny S was on Falcons. Like, every time you hit that up, he's back. Kenny, he's back. You kids, sit down. You don't even know kids. This guy's like fucking Zimu times 10. Oh, shit, he's just bottom fagged the shit. Oh, wait, listen, he used to be good back in the day. Listen, I got to feel that moment, and actually it extended longer than I thought. Bro, I thought they were going to go out in the fucking Swiss system, or you'd win one match or something. It had like a mini romance to it. What did you think?
It even extended. I was a little bit behind, but I was watching it, and they're up 11-5, about to 2-0 Astralis. Yep. And then they just dropped the ball completely. I was having the same exact feeling that you were, because there was a time when Guardian went to like a tier 3 team, and I went and watched that game. It was the most depressing thing I've ever seen. It's just like your favorite player can't even hit an off shot on someone standing still. Like, they're looking the other direction. He can't even hit him. It's the most depressing shit. And JW, I still have it in like my ESEA profile. He's my favorite player of all time. I love the way JW plays. It makes no sense. Yeah. I hate it, but I love the way he played the game back when he was good. So, like, the fact that he still continues is impressive. It is nice to see him do things, but it for a long time has been kind of depressing to see JW be such like a shadow of himself. You lost what was so incredible about his gameplay, so electric about his gameplay. You lost it almost like immediately after Fnatic. His fall off was like day to day. He fell off insanely well, but I almost actually was going to talk about Swedish CS as one of my good points, because you have eyeballers. They've pulled off some really incredible upsets. They've really showed themselves to be a relatively solid team. I don't think they're going to make another run like this. This was their chance. This was their opportunity. But you've also got Alliance doing things. You've got eyeballers doing. It seems like Swedish CS is having a bit of a resurgence, and it is nice to see JW do well, even if you also have to follow that up by watching him get clowned and destroyed after being up 11-5, right about to win, going to the semis.
We had another figure, like a legendary one on Snake and Banter. I was trying to remember it. I couldn't find it. Who said something about
Vale, maybe?
Was it about the idea that JW should retire?
I don't know about that.
I'm pretty sure there was like, oh God, we had somebody that was like more on that line about eyeballers and JW probably like hurting his legacy or something like that. So it's really cool to. Yeah, no, I thought we had somebody like a year ago or something that said something like that.
Could be.
But okay, whatever. It was a fairly negative remark regarding him, and at that point, I kind of felt a reason to agree. God, I wish I could remember who it was, but I definitely am glad to see the way that they were able to come into this tournament and be totally reasonably good. I'm glad that actually one guy I didn't really have my eye on too much, but performed pretty well was Maxter. I did look back at a little bit of Bob XD in this because he was super good, but then I didn't really catch too many of the games live. So looking at him, just kind of felt like he was never really happy with his spots. Like he kind of would always want to push a little too far. And at the very end when they lost, Richard kind of brought up he was never convinced by what he saw from Bob XD in this sort of thing and in this tournament, which is a shame because he kind of felt like he was clearly the best player coming into this year for Eyeballers. So for their one tier 1 event to go this well, but for him to still perform badly, to me almost says that there might be actually a little bit more to give for this team. I don't know. It sucks because this sort of event is really hard to come by, like the tier 1.5 event where they're like more so like they're in the bottom third of teams, but they might actually not be the worst team at it. That it's rare to come across something like this. So opportunities like this are far and few between, but they might get a little better. I don't think that means that they're going to make playoffs of a tier 1 event, but it's like almost like the level of play that they show could in turn improve from this event. Not that I know if that actually turns into anything, though.
You should have saved that for Hot Take Point Made. That's ridiculous. On the same episode, we're like, Karrigan, you better retire. JW, don't retire. I think you're still got it in you, man. Tell you what, put in another 5 years. Maybe you get another land. Like, it's ridiculous. It was also the weakest PGL ever, bro. Like, this, like if it wasn't called PGL, did all that prize money and all the fucking talent, it looks like a Snow Sweet Snow Cup. What are you talking about? Like, it's outrageous how bad it was. But whatever.
Well, this is like the Masters Bucharest from last year. It was like where Aurora ended up winning. I would say you could even argue that the field here is even weaker than that one. So yeah, I mean but they have these. I mean they're in the calendar now. There's a couple of these events that people are going to skip, and so it's kind of like they have to wait for this kind of event to happen again. Like a reminder, when Aurora won that event, the highest ranked team was 3D Max at number 9. Like that's and this one. PARIVISION and Mongols are both discernibly better than what that event was.
But this way, if people aren't aware, that's weird. Why is the final on Saturday instead of Sunday? Because they had to actually make it humanly possible to go to Brazil, Rio, right afterwards, which starts like the day after, basically. So that's why magically the final's on Saturday instead of Sunday now, if you don't know. So yeah, it's a bit of a scoffed event, let's say. Now then, speaking of people listening to good, the bad, the ugly, all the rest, all the Snake and Banter fodder, obviously, why not do it with some wonderful Raycons? This message is sponsored by Raycon. We have the Everyday Airbud Classics here. We've obviously mentioned these many, many, many times before. They have all sorts of different colours. Now, I don't care. I just use the plain black one, like my heart. But I know you fans out there with your fancy skins, with your neon and your Asimov, or whatever. My take on skins is also about 13 years old, but everyone wants the Asimov, the Kenny S. Magic Stick, whatever. We all love that one. They have all the different colours you can want out there. Obviously, the battery life is insane. It has loads of that. They have 32 hours with the case. So basically, you don't even need to charge them within a day. You can just use them endlessly as long as you have the case with you. They have a 30-day happiness guarantee. They have the active noise cancellation. Just press a button, you get that. You have the multi-point connectivity, connect to 2 devices, really seamlessly switch between them. They have had 3 million happy customers who've enjoyed them. So why not grab some for yourself? And in fact, if you celebrate Mother's Day, if you even care about your mother, I do, but none of your business, then why not buy us some Raycon Everyday Classic Earbuds? Go to Raycon.com. No, go to buyraycon.com/snake to get 15% off the Everyday Earbuds Classics. Thank you to Raycon for sponsoring. That's www.buyraycon.com/snake for 15% off their lovely earbuds. Okay, we will now go, gentlemen, to the final category. It is, of course, the ugly section. So what is ugly? You already hinted at it. Where are we going with ugly?
It's the major qualification. I think the major qualification was really interesting when nobody had it figured out. It made it for some really interesting events that like nobody kind of really understood until the very end. So you had such important, impressive matches, but now they've got it figured out. And there are so many bullshit things that you can find in the rulings. FaZe going to an event where I heard someone say that like even the idea that it was an open qualifier was in question. Where was the invite coming from? There's teams going to events that you think and from an analytical point of view, when do they miss the major? You have no idea when you can say that this team, this is the last game they finally missed the major. But even inside of it,
well, if you remember, it was actually announced initially. They failed, and then everyone reacted for 3 hours. Then it was like, well, hold on, they're on a plane to Belgrade. Like, that was mental, wasn't it? I know, like, breaking news, they're coming in, phases into the building. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, Paul?
And they're forfeiting.
Well, I'll tell you what, it did make it even more impressive to still lose at that tournament. That was next level, wasn't it? Because it's like they even got to the final map of the last series as well that they needed to qualify. It's mega, wasn't it? I know.
They keep you on the edge of your seat even when missing the major. Yeah. They do. But then you have like the stuff in the Asia qualifiers where you have teams forfeiting. Yep. You have I was listening to Talk and Counter and they were questioning if like there was, I think it was Talk and Counter, they were questioning if there was some possible match fixing implications for a forfeit that happened. It's like teams realized what's happening. Then tournaments just overstacked these ridiculous events, some of very questionable the legitimacy of like their invites and everything. You have teams dropping, like forfeiting in tournaments because the cutoff date is too far. It's actually a complete shit show. As soon as teams understood how to game the system the hardest and tournaments understood how to game the system the hardest, it became kind of bullshit to me. And it was what was really, really cool in the previous season, in my eyes, what was a very interesting race. It became it's butchered. And the 2.5 months before the actual major is just like the cherry on top. Like it's like what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I don't even know.
I usually respond first, but I know Thorin has more positive spin to VRS, so I kind of want. I actually would rather you respond first for this one.
All right, I'll put it this way: if everyone watches that episode of Hot Take Point Mate, they'll see I actually have a generally positive view of VRS. Like I even think at the end, even though I agree, by the way, it was weird that like there was so many lands, and actually the HLCB Belgrade one did make me think: is there just no limit to how far it goes down? You just can attend any LAN and you can somehow do this. So that was weird. With that said, though, I'm not the person. You've never seen me do this ever on fucking desks. I don't do that stupid shit because it's by definition a tautology of like the teams that qualified, they deserved to qualify because they qualified, but you know the ones that didn't qualify, well in the end we can all say they didn't deserve to qualify. Some of my favourite people say shit like that out loud because they think like, no, free applause from the crowd. Yeah, no shit, you fucking idiot. But I don't do that. This time, though, I actually think, despite all of that shite that just happened, because I agree there's some scuffed ass stuff, there even was some things where I will even speculate, I think there might have been some like shady shit behind the scenes. Put it this way, I won't say which country, but a very specific country that in esports is notorious for match fixing is also incredibly nationalistic. And I can tell you that I have heard stories in the past where they have allowed in tournaments when one knew he was going to get out of a group and the other one needed to win a game, maybe they lose a game, so both teams from that country get out. There's stuff like that where I thought the same thing when I saw certain people with forfeits, etc. It was like, wait a minute, is it because they're in already and so you get your mates in as well and you go, we'll just give you the forfeit win and then you're in the major too. I'm worried about that too. With all that said though, I do generally think the right teams made it. Like I don't think it was really any criminal robberies or some like, put it this way, there wasn't even one like PARIVISION where it was like, how did they make it in? No one really gamed the system that way. People started to go to these lands and win the games. And I even think, it's like, I've always said this about Counter-Strike itself. What's weird about Counter-Strike is how consistent a game it is, even though we all know when you play Counter-Strike, how fine the margins on a round are. The flash goes off a millisecond too early, he's not flashbanged. Flash goes off a second too late, your guy's flashbang. You swing the corner, the pixel insta-headshots him, it misses. But somehow, generally, the right teams win the games, the right teams win on the right maps they're strong on, the tactics work. Somehow it all shakes out. So I would say in general, I don't have too many complaints. I agree though, it definitely is ugly. I think you picked the right category for it. Like I was even thinking about myself, not only could there be like friendship or nepotism or nationalistic reasons to throw games and have like semi-fake qualifiers that get someone through it, but I was even thinking an obvious other angle is, God forbid one of these like mega rich teams with like infinite money, we won't say which ones, ever just decides to host like a fake LAN and just have the whole thing be some WWE shit where they make it look real, but then their team just gets to farm the points. Because remember, as Aurora showed us, even though hilariously they fucked it up, you don't even have to go just to qualify to the major. You can try and go to one of these and cynically boost to the next stage and go from stage 2 to stage 3 by going and playing these crap-hole teams. So there certainly is, there are some loopholes that seem a bit wide open and could be either were used or could be subject to abuse in the future. With that said, I just think generally it worked. I understand though that it looked like a complete mess. It was incredibly hard to follow. I mean, like I said, I was looking at it like fucking, it was like some crypto Twitter shit, like, oh, stuff's going up, buy now, buy, sell, oh, they're out, no, they're back in, and then the worst ones were the ones where it was like, this team can still make it, but they need this other team to lose map 1 and then this other team to win the second. What are you talking about? How about, did they make it or not? So go on, Maui. What's your take?
I mean, that's kind of one of the aspects that made the RMR more appealing to me. I kind of am in a position right now with this that my take is that this is probably a use of resources that would never end up happening. But if I had a best of both worlds and just my ideal world came to fruition, I would personally want the top 75% of every Valve ranking group, so Europe, Americas, Asia, top 75% of the teams qualify immediately to the major, but of the amount of teams that make it, but then the bottom 25% and then the further 25% beneath them would then play a regional RMR type of tournament, kind of like what the MRQs were. I actually didn't think the MRQs in essence were bad. I thought the MRQs were just online. If the MRQs were in person, I think the MRQs would have been great because you kind of had that best of both worlds approach where you had the elite teams are already in the tournament, but then the lower ranked teams now have to fight into stage 1 or whatever happened with those. I mean, it was that would be a really, really good system for me because I think that it gets a little bit skewed, and I think that there's way more instances of foul play as you get down the ladder on these things, and then you kind of see that, you know, certain teams didn't even beat anybody that was in the top 20 through their whole run to make it. That there's teams that are playing from. I also think it would be nice to kind of go back to the old ways where it's kind of like the major qualifier where all the teams have to go into that instead of a stage 1. Or stage 1 is like essentially the major qualifier, and then stage 2 then becomes the actual major. There's a couple ways you can work through this, but I understand that flying people out for a LAN that is just a qualifier, which then would be on the TO's dime, makes the prospect of hosting a major a lot less.
It's not going to be a massive tournament. It's going to be like another PGL type event, but you have to just run it to make it satisfying. But I know what you mean. Like, I even said this on Twitter. Even though I get that the meta on Twitter is dickhead social media managers pretend they're the team and then talk shit as if they were the team. I saw that fucking FlyQuest was talking shit on BC game that, like, we're at the major. It's like, as I said on Twitter, you're in the Make-A-Wish Foundation spot, you fucking idiot. They play in the best region in the world. That's not even a flex. What are you talking about, you dunce? Like, I know what you mean. If they actually had to play at the same LAN and qualify, it would raise the stakes a fuck ton. I'm weird. I thought that major qualifier was the shit, bro. I used to love that back in the day because it was just, again, it was pure merit. Look, to get there, you could have your slot. But once you were there, you had to actually win the games. That's why, by the way, even teams I thought were shit like Vegas Squadron, they earned their way into those majors. They actually beat real teams.
I mean, the Austin Majors MRQ I thought was much more valid. It was much more a valid way to do it than to just pure VRS, because I still think they need to work out the kinks in that.
The problem with the MRQs wasn't it like the MRQs? They also had weird different formats for different events.
They
like
did.
The NA1 had the weird BO3. Like it would be nice if it was solidified. I do like the idea of the RMRs were bad, but they were also, you know, a major qualifier that's similar in a similar way would be kind of interesting. Wouldn't it also solve the visa problems? But I guess that's just the same.
No, in theory, because the idea is you have to get the visa to get to that. Yes, and if you have it, then you know you're going to get to the major if you qualify. Yeah, that's true. That's why they also used to run it, as far as I know. Because the premise, I think, was you had to already have the visa for the minor, for example. Yeah. We had those to get into the major. Yeah. Okay, Maui, what is your ugly point?
My ugly point is something that I feel like didn't really hit the news cycles, but still is definitely ugly, which is I just haven't maybe seen enough people talk about this, or just kind of fell out because the team's bad around him. But NQZ deciding to bench himself, I feel like to me, I actually don't know what the ratings technically say for who the best player is this season for Pain off the top of my head. But in terms of my knowledge of the team, I would say NQZ is the best player on the team. So for him to be off of the roster on what was already to me a Pain that was much more, it was floundering compared to previous seasons, is pretty disappointing. And also I feel like it's ugly because the way that he went through his benching was like he actually benched himself. And so you're kind of having to read between the lines as much as possible. And the problem is that the statement that he gave was purely in Portuguese. And thankfully, we're at the point with technology now that I actually did ask Grok I actually did. I said, look at this video. What do the subtitles say? Translate them to English. So I actually looked through it. And so here, I'll give some quotes because I don't know if people, because I'm sure people actually may have seen the video, but as soon as they saw that it was Portuguese with Portuguese subtitles, who's going to actually take the time to do this? He said some of the key quotes for me were that he says, I believe that since last year, I've been dealing with stress and feelings that I sense are affecting my in-game performance and my motivation. Pause, some other stuff. I'm going to use the break to get my head straight, take care of myself, both mentally and physically. Some more stuff, break. I want to thank Pain for being understanding with me, the psychologist who has been helping me a lot to understand how I can do what I want.
The way you just said pause out of nowhere there sounded like that thing where guys
like
from the hood are like
break.
Pause. You know when they're like, I don't want to seem gay or anything. You know, like weird.
No, just break between these are all separate statements. Okay, so like breaking between the statements. The psychologist who has been helping me a lot to understand how I can do what I want and how I need to handle things so I can deliver my best version to you guys. I can read this in two ways. The one is the sad aspect of this, which is that NQZ, for me, he's the best opera in all of South America. Maybe you could make the argument that Try is better, but I think that's more off of like the eye test than actually the level of opposition he faced on a regular basis. The second aspect of this, which is the funny side, is this is what Pain get for making Snow their star player. Like, you just get fucking people leaving that team. Like, it's just, how could you handle that? How could you give a guy like Snow all the star positions and it just stresses out your if he's winning all the time, I don't think he's doing this, okay? Like, mental health is serious, and I care about NQZ's mental health as much as anybody, which is why I would say get Snow off those star fucking rolls.
Okay.
As much as you can read this for I want to be lenient and read this as a literal thing that he's had some mental health issues. You know, he's had troubles. A lot of the time, I feel like when we've seen this in the past, it's ended up coming out later that the team was just an absolute shit show. Right. And maybe that's why there is legitimate problems. Right. Maybe that's the team is just a fiesta, and that's why you have these problems, why you're feeling down. I too often see that it's something to do with the team, that really the benching yourself is just, I wasn't allowed off this team and I wanted to get the hell out. And it is struggling because it is painful to see, because Pain is a team. I do feel like they have some of the keys. I do feel like I like Big Azera. I like his calling style. I think he does some solid things. I like NQZ as an opper. So to see their team, basically NQZ benches himself, I feel like that team is no longer nearly as interesting. Like, that NQZ was an incredible player for that team, and he did make up for some flaws in the other fragging ability of the rest of the team. Yeah, the ugly part is that I don't know if you can trust that what he's saying, or maybe if we should even be analyzing it, if that has something to do with the team, or if that's a real, an actual, just a personal thing.
Put it this way, this is actually a bomber of a move to me, because I just think about how much of the luster of this team, if you go back in time 2 years, they were a team on the rise. Each season they got more interesting and better. Big Azera established. By the way, it's another person I'm a fan of. Like, he actually is, first of all, he's a legit fragging IGL. He can really actually top the scoreboards himself, and he knows what he's doing. And also, this was the other guy. It was the idea that you had Big Azera, who, as far as I can tell, is actually like, he's not like JT, we never got any offers, bro. He's one where I've heard he's had offers from the other better teams. He just decided, like, look, I'm sure he'd say yes to Furia, but beyond that, the other squads, the ones that be the side grids, I've heard he doesn't do that. This is his project. He's sticking with it. He's going to bring people into it. I kind of respect that when people do that. So if you have him, and then you have NQZ, who, by the way, was the best Brazilian AWPer. I know that's because obviously the talent level is not particularly good in that one role, but actually, people forget he's only 21 years old now. Like, he was getting slightly better each year. He was a little bit chalky when he played against the top teams, but if people forget, the one miracle run they had, that Blast Austin, where they went all the way to the semis and beat Furia, he was the guy who was carrying. He was going fucking ham at that tournament. Like, it was really good. They made top 4 of fucking Major. If you go look at that roster, you won't even believe that was top 4 of Major. Then also, you look at the squad in general. The other thing with that exact lineup, remember, was the dream that having this, like, South American squad of, like, I've got this guy from Chile and then this guy from... That hasn't worked, and they've gone back to Brazilians, but it's not the sexy Brazilian names, not the big names we all want. So, as a result, they've now just settled back into being, like, we go to some Tier 1 lands and go out in the group stage, and it's kind of whatever. So, a lot of the, like, narrative around that team has collapsed, and now that this guy's left... Listen, I still somewhat am interested in what Big Azera does, but who gives a fuck about this team now? Like, there's nothing left to care about. This was the player you had to hope was going to get, like, 10% better, and then suddenly you'd be a relevant team. Also, even though it's an old school reference, I know what you mean. First of all, Snow is like some fucking, I think he's probably only 18 now. He was young as fuck. Because I've never watched Brazilian CS like in Brazil, I never got to see him be some like talent that everyone wanted to watch. Every time I watched him play, he was always the guy who just went completely missing in the server and just shit the bed, and I agree with Maui. He wasn't just some support player, mate. Like, he had some spot to it. It's like, you should be doing damage, mate. Like, you're actually supposed to be the prodigy in this team, I assume. And also, if your name's fucking Snow, I just think of that classic Informer, you know, Marcelino me, I go blam, I lick you bum bum da. Look it up. Look up Snow Informer. He was a white boy from Toronto, and he was fucking laying that down, homie. It was a different time. It was the 90s. He was wearing the big, you know, the fucking, he was wearing the Timbs from that charity shop I was talking about, the big oversized jacket and stuff. It was crazy work. But young Thorin was fucking vibing like a motherfucker when that shit came out. Anyway, I'm not vibing with this team, and NQZ's done. Also, I actually hope, if he really is some mental health thing, to go away for 6 months, come back on another team. Maybe this is the secret where you get out those impossible contracts in Brazil, and now he comes back on, like, I don't know, when Klim finally realises, I'm not Molodor, this isn't Fury, why am I playing a Russian who's actually pretty good? Why am I the AWPer for MIBR? When he figures that out, NQZ, pick up the phone, Insane, join MIBR, then maybe we can talk. Right.
Honestly, they had their Insani. They had Davideus. Okay, Davideus at the recent event.
That name will never be heard ever again. Look, but okay.
He put up. Okay, the event that they just played, Pain in Brazil, the Sao Paulo event. Davideus. Okay, it was Pain that won it, but Davideus put up a 1.54 rating at the event. Like, that's fucking donk. He's putting up donk numbers when he's playing in Brazil. Okay, like, and people were, oh my God, it's just like they gave Snow Davideus' positions, and he just sucked in all of them when Davideus is what made them relevant and got them to the semifinals too. It was such an idiotic move. So stupid. I'll never forgive them. I'll never forgive Pain for that. I'm the only person that has ever cared about Davideus from the West.
Anyway, there is one more little poly market I wanted to show people, which is, in amongst all of these, there was this one that still exists. And remember, this is all of the year. Will Team Falcons this year win an S-tier event? It's actually a 67% chance. Believe it or not, the traders believe this will, at some point, who knows when, at some point it will happen. They believe that Falcons will win an S-tier event. Now, to be fair, as we've just seen, that probably includes events like this, PGL, etc. But they obviously are, listen, it's not just at majors at this point in time. They are like the world-class fuck-up artists. Like, we have that saying you've all heard in English, it's being overused now. They could mess up a piss up in a brewery. You know what I mean? This team is just unbelievable. They could literally be walking over the finish line in a race with a massive lead, and as they walked over, look at their feet, have their feet snap backwards and just be paralysed, and then watch every other person go ahead. So, Vu, do you agree with the traders? Does it happen this year? Does they get a trophy this year? Does Zonic get that trophy? Can be any
the problem only lies on these sorts of events. Like, you would have to really look at like exactly what their calendar is, what teams are likely are at those events, and then what teams are likely to drop out of those events. Because if you look at a real tier 1 event with even most of the best teams there, or a good amount of the best teams there, even if you're missing Vitality, this team will find a way to fumble it and fuck it up. And the amount of time that it's been, I'm just losing faith more and more, because the things coming out of their camp don't seem to like signal that they're fixing this issue where you get them into like 4v2s and they're just on different pages. Like, one guy swings and one guy holds. Like, if they all, so many of these these Falcons moments would be winnable if they just stood still, or if they just all swung together. But they're on, like, it feels too much like Zonic is having the same problem with Falcons he had before, which is you have 2 schools of thoughts or 3 or 4 schools of thoughts. They're all working on different pages, and he's trying to get them to play like Astralis CS or something. He's trying to get them to play these out like perfect CS, and just instead of just being like, hey guys, go play it like a Face-It pug and you could probably win anyways. And they don't seem to be addressing this or fixing it.
That's why it's become impossible to defend Zonic. It's like, bro, you were actually considered the greatest genius ever who like pioneered structured CS, and now you have the greatest collection of insane fuck-ups ever in the screenshot history of Counter-Strike within like a calendar year or something, bro. Like, it's nuts. You can just do all flick book of them. There's infinity of them in there. I know he's lost in every possible situation.
And their solution is No more face it pugs, yes. We need team bugging.
No more pugging.
It's like, no, man. The solution is you're not on the same page strategically in the game, how you should play these out. And you're not getting there. It's like, I lose faith. I would vote no on this. Intuitively, I would vote no on this super heavy. The only thing stopping me is just like the Mickey Mouse events. But somehow, almost Mouse-esque, I think they're going to find a way to lose against no matter who the opponent is if they end up in the semis and the finals.
Problem is that there are just a few too many of those sort of S-tier events for me for them to not have a really good chance, because even I look at, Astana, for example, it has a lot of the other top teams, but it has no vitality. Falcons are at that one. CS Asia Championships is 16 teams, S-tier event. Falcons are at that one. There's no vitality. You'd say that the best teams are like PARIVISION, Maus, Aurora, Mongols, but then you have to include Falcons in the top 5. And then I feel like there's also a couple events that are S-tier in the later portion of the year that are technically on Liquipedia considered S-tier. But one of them, for example, is the Star Ladder Star Series fall event, which is 8 teams. It's an 8-team event, and it's an S-tier according to Liquipedia. And if Falcons goes to that, I mean, I imagine it's going to have a pretty similar level of competition. You're going to get Aurora because they can't say no to events. You're going to probably have PARIVISION because they also just feel like they need to grind it out. And then you just kind of have a couple other teams, you're not really sure who, but I doubt Vitality goes to that one. So in my opinion, they're going to probably have this year probably 4 events roughly that are a little bit on the easier side, still considered S-tier events. And in one of those 4, I would imagine they take one of them.
That's what's going to make it so much more embarrassing when they lose literally all of those. And then Sonic gets fired and they move on.
Here's what's funny. I'm tempted to side with you because I also do agree, like I just said there. At this point in time, it's just become a real pattern. That's not even like a loose it's a hard correlation that this team just fucks up anything. Like, they've even done it. They did it by the way, they did it when they were much better in the second season of last year. They would beat Vitality and the best teams in the world and still fuck up the final match. It didn't matter who they played. They had that mouse quality where it's like, you'll lose to anyone in this fucking match when it actually matters. The only angle that gives me any pause, but you just can't predict when this will happen, is obviously it is for the whole year and they could make a roster move. If they make a roster move, maybe that does something. But that's why I say I'm tempted to say no as well, because right now I don't think it's the players, bro. Remember, this was the same before Kiyasuke. Like, it looks at this point, there is some sort of a culture / mentality thing. It's why the point you make about the way they play the game is very valid. Like, it's not like they haven't just been unlucky. I thought they were unlucky the first 1 or 2 screenshots. There's about 10 screenshots now, and they're all really, really bad. Like, as I've pointed out a million times over, if people always do this to me, when I get loads of material of a player being shit or someone fucking up, they always go, well, you could do that for any player if you scrutinise them. It's like, you can't. You just can't. Like, go and take any other team that's like top 10 and show me them having this many like 4v2 losses when they're like, guns. There's one, remember, on Inferno when the other team was going to fucking save even, and they pushed so early, the other team was like, well shit, we got the kill, we may as well go in, and then like won the round off it. It's like, what are you doing? Like, at that point in time, that's almost like, this is how we actually respect you all as players. We don't even accuse you of match fixing, we just assume you're that shit. It's actually kind of a fucking insane diss, but also a compliment at the same time. Like, if you told me that Mauisnake, NiKo, it has to be match fixing, it isn't. They're just this bad guy. So I also agree. I say no. The polymarket traders are wrong unless there's a miracle trust. Right, there's one last topic. And you know what? Much in the vein of the good, because I knew Vu would bring the heat with the top points, I'm also going to go with a slightly romantic angle for the ugly. It's just ugly. It's neither good nor bad. It's deserved. But if you think about these 4 names, gentlemen, if I was to make a modern CS Mount Rushmore of longevity, these 4 names win. No one can beat them. Simple. Think how many years he was on top. He technically still plays the game now. Device, by the way, it wasn't until literally last year this show and Hot Take Point Made stopped being, like with karrigan now, insert Device into every one of those teams. Insert Device into Maus. Insert Device into G2. That used to be a real take. Everyone thought he could still be redeemed. He could still be a top 10 player in the world. NiKo, by the way, to be fair to him, he's still really good. He's another one that's been 1 billion years at the top. And karrigan was at every fucking major, wasn't he? Those 4 names are all technically active professional players on real organisations minus BC game, but even they suppose they have money. And only one of them's going to be at the major, and it's the guy we just said, like, would fucking zipping his fly up in the morning and chop his dick off with the fucking zipper. Like, it's only NiKo. NiKo's the only one at a massive major in Counter-Strike. It's only NiKo we got there, boys. All those massive names. Those names, by the way, even when Civil and Device aren't that great, you still want the name there. You know what I mean? Like we said about JW, you still want to see it and have young fans. Oh, I've always a fan of... You don't even get the sticker. You don't get... Of the 4 longevity kings, only one even made the major. What do you think, Fu? I think it's just ugly. It's just ugly, bro.
Not only is it that way, but it's also that, like, those are a lot of the names that bring the most viewership. Like, you see Simple play a game when Simple had his comeback, that was insane. And I remember I talked to the guys at Pro Settings, where if you want to catch someone's settings, you've probably been on that site without realizing it. And I remember talking to them, and they would say, like, Simple, even I think it was like 2022 when Simple wasn't even playing. They were like, he dwarfs everyone else, like, astronomically. Like, and
so even when he's not playing, people are still looking up what's his sense. I love it.
People are just interested in Simple. Yeah. Him missing it, bad. NiKo missing it would be bad if he did, because he draws so many eyes. karrigan missing it is depressing, honestly. And his interviews afterwards, where he's just like, it makes it so much more sense. This is like a great ugly point, because all I can do is agree that, like, yeah, this is just unfortunate. You have so many of the historically great players that, and it's nice to see kind of like, I think we've seen it to a large extent, but like the passing of the torch is always nice when you see these players at events, almost for like a continuity's sake, to see them losing at these events to the new guard. We've seen it. Maybe we are just like romantic about old CS. Maybe we are just holding on for too long, because I think we have seen a passing of the torch. But if for someone that's been watching since like 2006, it is sad to see them. Yeah, I can't help but agree.
It's hard not to agree, so I'll just bring up some other players that at least we can celebrate these guys, okay? All right, I mean, okay, so I'm looking it up on who has 15 or more major appearances, not including the upcoming one. Okay. For guys that are going to be attending, we've got NiKo. All right, great.
That's a good one. It's a big one.
Yeah.
King of the Night Clubs.
Okay, we got... Yeah, exactly. Things are going to be popping in Cologne. Bottles, of course. Elige, 17 majors. True. Okay, happy about that. Surprise one, obviously, but one that we got to celebrate too.
We had to sort of squeeze him through that loophole to get him through the door. But listen, we know the stars. It's fucking the UFC. We got to get some big names on the card, boys. Yeah, okay. Snacks. Okay.
Snacks has made it as well.
Okay.
And then, obviously, I think you mentioned Apex already, so the last one, Fallen, the Godfather.
Yeah, true.
This might be his last.
Yeah.
This is going to be his 20th.
True.
This is going to be his 20th major overall, so at least we'll get to see his... This might be, even though without all of the fanfare, this might actually be the real last dance for him. So yeah. I'm still gonna be.
You mean 4 years after the actual last dance? That's still so egregious that they dared call it that. As I even said, if you call it that when the music stops, you have to stop dancing. You can't just keep going for 4 more years.
It's just like 4 years of after hours.
I know. Well, the joke is, in a way, it was the last dance. He just did the fucking Bane thing at the beginning of Dark Knight, didn't it? Dark Knight Rises. Like, he just jettisoned out of there to Fury and left all those other guys to die. Like,
for the last dance.
Some of those were like up and coming players. Like, you've never seen them since. They're not on Pain. They're not on MIPR. They're just dead, bro. It's just done so. It's like Fur was actually better than him, and he had to fuck off and be a streamer again. It's crazy working. I don't know. But anyway, that's true. They all will be there at the major. And Naf as well. True. Popular player in Canada.
Sorry, I just had to bring up Naf. Okay, I just had to bring up Naf. Okay. He's on there. He's on there.
He's in the list.
Nearby.
He's done a lot of majors.
You can't bring up the rest of that list without Naf.
Yeah, true. Anyway, see what we talk about in the next episode of Snake Banter.